Coffee makes no sense to me. The next one on my hit list of items that humans are addicted to that I don't quite understand or I don't quite reason with, right? It doesn't make sense to me that people take this thing. I understand that they do. I don't understand why. It seems a bit nonsensical to me. So let me explain that, right? Coffee for me, or caffeine in general, let's talk about that from now, just caffeine in general, is very similar to alcohol, which is what I talked about in the last episode, right? In that, alcohol, the famous saying goes, is something that steals happiness from your future self, right? So in essence, you're happy now, but you won't be tomorrow morning, right? The hangover, the physical damage to your body and the illness that you feel, the mental health and the things like that, you're stealing that from your future self, right? And this is a universal with drugs, by the way. Whatever it takes from you is more than what it gives you, right? It might give you the world in terms of happiness and euphoria and energy and good feelings, but what it takes away is always going to outweigh what it gives you. That's a general rule that I've observed with these kinds of substances, with drugs in general, right? It always will take away more than it gives you, right? So with caffeine, with alcohol, it steals happiness from your future self. With caffeine, it steals energy from your future self, right? So if you take it now, you might have some energy now, but you won't have energy tomorrow or the day after or the entire week, right? Because caffeine has long-lasting effects, as does alcohol, right? Caffeine, in fact, has a 12-hour half-life, in fact, right? So what that means is, after 12 hours, you still have that caffeine in your system, but it's half the amount that was there at the start when you drank that cup of coffee or that, can of Red Bull or the Monster, whatever it is that people drink these days. I see different concoctions every single week in the gym of these, different colored cans of whatever people drink, pre-workout, etc., things like that. And for me, it's a decision to make, right? Like, sure, you want some energy now, so you're going to go for that caffeine hit, right? You want to have that really good workout, you're going to have that really good session of work, studying, whatever it is. And the logic is, I want some energy for this work session, so I'm going to take this extra boost of caffeine to support that or to boost that. Sorry about the sound of fireworks, by the way. I can't do anything to stop that. The windows are closed. You're just going to hear that throughout me talking. So you're going to take that extra hit of caffeine and your energy is going to be boosted. And theoretically, you'll have a better work session, right? Here's the issue with that, right? For every subsequent work session you have, you are going to rely on that caffeine, right? And then you'll build something called a tolerance. You might have heard that before. It basically means that to get to the same level of energy, you're going to have to do a lot more caffeine. You have to ingest a lot more caffeine, right? And there's a ceiling to that, to the amount of caffeine you can ingest before you're, taking sackfuls of caffeine powder or whatever it is. There's a limit, right? And so what ends up happening is your body adjusts its energy levels so that you need to take the caffeine just to feel normal again, just to get to baseline again. And then when that wears off, you are below baseline. So in fact, for the majority of your day, you are constantly below baseline because you built a tolerance to the caffeine. And just to feel normal, you have to take that hit of caffeine, and usually it is a large amount of caffeine. Sorry about my dog barking. I've got 2 sound systems here going on behind me. And that's just one problem, right? Building a tolerance to it. Your energy levels will be destabilized and lower than the person who doesn't take caffeine, right? That's a fact, right? That doesn't even come into the effects on sleep, right? Because even if you were diligent enough to take coffee only in the morning, for example, right? And this is something they recommend, right? Because if you take caffeine or coffee or drink coffee or Red Bull or whatever in the evening, then it will definitely affect your sleep, right? Because it takes so long for the caffeine to flush out of your system that it will affect your sleep for sure if you take it at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. in the evening time. They say you should never have caffeine or coffee after noon, right? Midday, right? So they had that bit of advice. But it still does affect your sleep. It just affects it less, right? So your quality of sleep won't be great, right? Do you find yourself tossing and turning at night? Could be because of the caffeine, right? Because it stays in your system. If you're drinking it every single day, then you're not getting enough sleep. It's to do with your adenosine receptors, if I'm remembering this correctly. I'm probably butchering some terms here, so forgive me if I don't get the biology quite correct. Your sleep is very important to flush out those chemicals of sleepiness during the night so that you feel alert during the day, right? And caffeine disrupts that system, right? I'm not going to go into details, but because I probably will get it wrong because I'm not an expert here, but caffeine disrupts the system of your sleepiness and your chemicals in that kind of part of your body, right? So you can't sleep well, and when you wake up, you aren't well rested, and so that is a further performance, whatever the opposite of enhancer is, right? A performance destructor, if that's a word, right? A performance inhibitor, that's a better word, right? So there's the effect of tolerance, then there's the effect on your sleep, and then there's the effect of the negative heart, what do you call this? Cardiovascular issues, right? With the physical health. It literally is a drug. So you're essentially taking a light form of like a speed, right? That's what this is. People don't understand this, right? I need to make it very clear. These things are drugs, right? Right? In the same category as the illegal bad stuff, the illegal bad drugs that you think about. Also, medicinal drugs, let's not forget that. So it's not necessarily that it is always a negative overall thing, right? But even medicinal drugs have their side effects, right? There's a famous saying in the kind of pharmaceutical research industry, and it's the fact that a drug either doesn't work or it has side effects, right? Because if it does work, it's going to have side effects. There's always going to be something that goes wrong or goes slightly wrong, and you accept it for the sake of the good thing that it does, right? But it is still a drug. And as I said at the start, it usually takes away more than it gives you, right? So while you might get more energy for a little bit of time, the rest of your life goes right down the drain, right? So is it really worth the sacrifice? And is it really worth the habit, the dependency, the addiction? That's another thing I didn't talk about, right? People have become so reliant upon this that there's a common phrase in America, for example, that is, don't talk to me before I've had my coffee, right? And that, I don't know if this is a universal thing, but that to me, it is a sign of a generally intolerable person, right? I'm cranky before I've had my coffee. I'll get mad at you if you speak to me before I had my coffee, right? It speaks to the mental state of the human being before they get their fix of the drug that they take. In this case, coffee or caffeine, right? It affects people's mentality and their brain space that much. It's an addiction, right? And there is caffeine withdrawal. It's a real thing, right? In the same way that drug addicts get withdrawal symptoms from that kind of thing if they start to quit. If alcoholics get the same thing as well, caffeine is very much the same. You get the shakes, the jitters, the kind of like anxiety feeling, and it's difficult to get off of. It hooks into your mind. So there's this thing that you're addicted to, that you have a dependency on, you build a tolerance for, and it really messes up your energy levels. It messes up your sleep, and you can't function properly. Sorry, let me pronounce that properly. And there's the thing. Here's another way in which it is very similar to alcohol, right? When you are sleep deprived, it's very comparable to when you are drunk, right? So a certain level of sleep deprivation is the equivalent level of drunk that you, for example, shouldn't drive at, right? So they've kind of measured this kind of thing. I can't remember what the exact stats are, but if you, for example, if you only get 3 hours of sleep in a night, it's equivalent to that level of drunkenness, right? So to compare the state of mind that you're in when you're addicted to this drug that you're relying upon that affects your energy and affects your sleep so that you aren't yourself, you aren't 100% of who you want to be, it's like being drunk because you have less sleep, less energy, and that's equivalent that's the equivalent of you being drunk. Let me just say that correctly, right? To sacrifice you being 100% of who you are for the sake of a very short-term and short-lived energy boost, one time, right? And that one time never comes back. You never have that high again. It's always going to be less than that first time, right? And maybe there's 2 or 3 times after that are somewhat similar, but then after that, you build a tolerance and it becomes back to normal. And you build a dependency on this drug. And that's why it's a bit nonsensical for me for someone to get into this thing, right? I understand the reasoning behind it. I get, okay, you take this drug the one time and it kind of like the mentality going into it is that you take it when you need it and so that it's fine because you just kind of, I guess you don't see the consequences, right? Maybe there's a lack of understanding there. People drink their coffee, they don't know about the adenosine system and that kind of stuff, how it affects your sleep and how you build a tolerance. They don't necessarily know about that. They don't want to do the research about it. Maybe that might be similar to alcohol. We all drink it because we don't really know how it affects us. We don't really know about the consequences. Maybe we turn a blind eye to it, even if we did know, right? So for me, having thought about these things long before I ever started even thinking about taking them has made me reconsider that thought. I even stopped drinking tea, right? At the age of 21, I was like, as a British person, as a person from the UK, I used to drink tea every single day. That's just something that we did, right? Come home from school, drink some tea. Before bed, drink some tea. In the morning, drink some tea, right? I even quit tea. Tea doesn't have that much caffeine in it, not a significant amount, but it has some, I learnt, right? I didn't even know that. I thought it had no caffeine in it. So I was like, you know what? I don't know why I drink this. I could just drink something else. So I just quit drinking it. Just full stop. So now at this point in my life, I'm drinking nothing that has caffeine in it. Right? The only thing I drink right now is water, right? Sparkling water. It has bubbles in it, right? That's it. No caffeine in my life because, well, I don't need it. Because in my life, I eat healthy foods, I sleep well enough, and my energy levels are generally high throughout the day. I wake up at the crack of dawn in the morning, feeling energized. I go for a walk, I go to the gym, I record videos, I do my work, I work on my business. And throughout the day, I don't have any energy crashes, right? I mean, sure, I feel tired after a workout. I'm sure I feel sleepy when it gets to, late in the night, right? That's the natural kind of signaling that your body gives you. It's not affected by chemicals. It's completely natural. But with caffeine, you can artificially kind of like change that. And the way that your body reacts is very erratic, right? You'll crash at the worst times, right? I remember when I was eating foods that weren't the optimal diet for me and driving to the gym, feeling the crash coming and being like, oh no, it's the worst time for a crash to come. And that is just awful for your livelihood, right? To have to kind of build your life around these crashes and peaks and highs and lows that you know will be on your day and you can do nothing about because you choose to do these things in your life, like, drinking caffeine and alcohol and substances and eating not so well. Perhaps diet might be my next item on the hit list for things that we do that seem nonsensical to me. That's perhaps more understandable because it's far less known about, right? Alcohol, we kind of already know that it's bad. Caffeine, we kind of already know that it's bad. Less so than alcohol, but then food, no one really knows what the optimal diet is, right? Maybe we know already that junk food and processed food is bad. Probably most people know that, but even that I'm not so sure, right? People might justify eating at McDonald's by saying, oh, it's just bread and beef. That's it, right? Like there's not anything that's bad in there, is it? And so they'll continue to eat at McDonald's, for example, right? Food is that kind of area where it's kind of like, it's difficult because of culture, because of, you know, the way that people have eaten their lives and the lack of knowledge and the lack of knowledge, essentially. And so it's a spectrum, right? I'm never going to sort of shame someone for eating a certain way unless I know for a fact that they know it's bad for them and they kind of complain about it, right? Oh, I wonder why I have energy slumps and my energy's all over the place when I'm drinking caffeine, right? And I know the fact that it will affect my energy levels, right? If they complain about it and they know what's going on to them, I'm like, hang on, like what? Why are you complaining about it? You know what you're doing, you know how it's affecting you, and you know what you could do about it. If you know what to do, then just change your habits, right? So caffeine, right? And what can you do to affect your energy levels without using caffeine, right? To kind of make it healthier, right? So I mentioned a few of them already. So like this basically eating healthy. So the basics of that is just basically don't eat any processed foods. You kind of know what that means. Even if you know nothing about diet, eat whole foods. You know, fruits, vegetables, meats, things like that. Things that haven't been processed too much. Whatever that means to you. Don't think about it too much. Sleep well enough, right? Sleep when you feel tired. When you feel that kind of, you know, your eyes start to burn a little bit and you kind of, your eyelids feeling heavy and you kind of like, I feel like I could lie down, I could really easily sleep right now. Listen to your body and sleep right there and then, as soon as you can, right? Wake up at a decent time. So don't wake up, well, don't undersleep, essentially is what I want to say here, right? I hesitate to say don't wake up too early, but sometimes you have to wake up early, right? So sleep enough that waking up early doesn't mean that you kind of compromise on sleep, right? And then physical exercise. So exercise well enough in the day so that your energy levels are naturally elevated during those times in the day. And so your body gets your blood pumping and the chemicals move around your body so that you can kind of feel the natural ebbs and flow of energy that your body provides for you when you need it, right? Not some external chemical substance injected into your body by drink, right? Coffee or energy drinks or whatever it is. So, conclusions. Caffeine. For me, not something that makes logical sense if you want to live a healthy life. If you're not so concerned about that, then by all means go and do it. But just know that it will affect your life. That's what I'll say. Same category as alcohol, as other drugs for me. And that's about it. And the reasons why? You build a tolerance, you build an addiction, it affects your sleep, it stays in your body and affects your systems in the way that they work, most notably the adenosine system, probably messing up the pronunciation of that, so correct me if I'm wrong. And that generally affects your livelihood in terms of the crashes and peaks of your energy that will not be natural and will be very annoying for you. And so generally speaking, what caffeine gives you is nowhere near the amount that it takes away from you. And people don't really see the consequences of that because they think that that's just how their body is just functioning at that time. Quit caffeine for 90 days and see what happens to your energy levels. See if it's better or not. 90% of the people who I have heard do this experience good results. I've never done it because I've never been on caffeine, so I can't tell you. But supposedly, it's a good effect on your livelihood, on your health, on general outcomes of life. So, try that out. Give it a thought at least, right? So think about what I've said today and think, I drink caffeine. Do I think it's good for me? Like, what relevance does what Dilan has said have, right? Is he right about it? Is he wrong about it? If I'm wrong about it, please tell me in the comments below, right? So have a think. Is it something that you want to keep doing in your life? And if so, why? I'd like to know. Tell me. So with that being said, keep thinking, take care of yourselves, and until next time, I'll see you soon.